From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. I'm going to speak very carefully today because I'm going to be treading into areas where I could easily sound foolish. Things like high-tech social media platforms, artificial intelligence. These are things that are so beyond me that I am a bit reticent to discuss them. So here's my strategy for today. I'm going to try very hard to just stay in my lane. All right? I'm only going to offer opinions where I think I know what I'm talking about. When it gets into the technical issues, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to pretend I know more than I do. I don't want to embarrass myself the way members of Congress do in these committees when they say the dumbest things, and the experts on the panel just have to be patient with them and roll their eyes and say, "Well, Senator." Anyway, I won't get into all that. So that's my strategy for today. And let's actually start there. Speaking of committees, the Senate Judiciary Committee this week got to yell at CEOs of the major platforms. So the chief executives of Meta, TikTok, Snap, Discord, and Twitter, which I still call, I'm just going to call it Twitter. Nobody's the boss of me. I'm just going to call it Twitter. I'm never going to call it X. I'm just going to call it Twitter until I die. And in what's kind of rare these days, the Republicans and the Democrats were totally aligned. They are 100% with each other on this. They really don't like these companies, especially when it comes to the harm they do to teenagers, which was really the main focus of this hearing. I think it would have been useful to broaden the scope of the conversation. It harms everybody. It harms seniors. We know how boomers are susceptible to scammers, right? So I think they could have broadened it. I think the whole damn internet is pretty much a dangerous place for everybody these days. But they focused on teenagers, so they could do their whole "what about the children?" And I don't want to make light of this because it is very serious, and I pretty much agree with both. Like I say, both the Republicans and the Democrats are on the same page here. So yeah, they got these 5 CEOs. A couple of them had to be subpoenaed. They didn't want to come. They didn't accept the invitation. They had to be dragged into the hearing room. One of them, I forget which one, doesn't say here in the article I'm looking at. One of them had to have U.S. Marshals show up at their door. It's like, "You're coming with us." So yeah, Jim Jordan gets to defy subpoenas, but not CEOs of tech companies. So, I mean, we're all pretty familiar with the problems, right? Tech companies, they basically prey on all of us. They collect our data. They intentionally make their products addictive, and especially when it comes to children, as this was the topic of the hearing this week. Especially when it comes to children, preying on children for sex trafficking, and their algorithms will steer teenage girls especially to eating disorders and whatnot. And so in the minds of this committee, and I don't know, most Americans, I haven't seen polling on this, so I won't pretend to know. But certainly in that hearing room, there was pretty much wide agreement that if they don't get on their horse and do something about this, they're going to be regulated. As one senator put it, "We could regulate you right out of business." Well, okay. Here's my first issue. This is a never-ending, escalating arms race between profit makers and their consumers, citizens, Americans. And As is often the case, I watched much of this on YouTube. I listened while I took my walk, but I watched a lot of it. And as usual, in cases like this, I'm kind of yelling back at my screen as if they could hear me. My mother used to do that a lot. My mother, did your parents talk to the television? My mother did that. And I find myself doing it sometimes. It's like when you're watching a football game and you're yelling out your encouragement or your dismay. Yeah, I do that for congressional hearings. They just don't seem to get it. It's so obvious to me. The strongest questioning, I thought, or the most impactful for me anyway, came near the end. Senator Jon Ossoff, a Democrat from Georgia, where he's basically saying the problem is the profit. You're there to make money. You have to prioritize your shareholders. Fiduciary responsibility, right? That's your number one thing. And yeah, that's the problem. He didn't take it to the next step because you can't if you're a Democrat, a capital D Democrat in Congress. You can threaten to regulate, but you can't ever threaten to take away that basic concept of capitalism. And even though Ossoff was being very critical of, he was talking mostly to Zuckerberg at the time. He was really talking to everybody, talking to the nation. Almost as if, even though he's being very critical, he's almost saying, well, what can we do? There's almost nothing we can do because you have to meet your fiduciary responsibility. So, therefore, you better get your act right and stop harming all these kids, which they are, and all the independent research agrees. There's just a complete consensus on this. That's really not an argument anymore. It's very much akin to, and it's been compared to the CEOs of tobacco companies. Remember several years ago when they sat at a similar hearing and were just torn apart by the committee. By the way, why does the Senate Judiciary Committee get this hearing? They get all the good stuff. Judiciary? I don't understand. Why would they get this? Wouldn't it be, I don't know, Health and Human Services or Commerce, or isn't there some sort of, who handles tech and the internet and all of that? I'm not sure why this particular committee. Anyway, so yeah, Senator Jon Ossoff made it really clear that, well, yeah, you got to make a profit. And then following him, I think it was Senator Blackburn, Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee. Very similar line of questioning or criticism regarding them making a profit, but she puts it in a moral framework, as if to say, how dare you put profits ahead of children? You must care for the children more than you care for profits. Well, yes, of course I agree with that, but then why are you a capitalist, Marsha Blackburn? And even my good friend Jon Ossoff, who is a Democrat and closer to me politically, although I don't really know much about him except that he's a capital D Democrat. That doesn't mean much these days. I'm pretty sure I could say as a very safe bet that he's a capitalist, because they all are. So your criticisms, both of you, but especially Marsha Blackburn, your criticisms ring so hollow. Why are you a capitalist? You're criticizing the very system that you constantly defend. And so, yeah, if you think that, we can just regulate. Companies, CEOs, listen to me. You got to get your act together and you got to improve things on your own, or we're going to regulate you. When has that worked? Well, it has worked. Let's be honest. I'm going to argue from my opposition's strongest argument. The aforementioned tobacco companies and their CEOs. Still a legal product, but tobacco use from teenagers is a tenth of what it used to be. They taxed them heavily. They took away most of their advertising. And marketing, they can't market to children. Certainly they try to get away with what they can, but that's generally a success story. How many people smoke today? Compared to the old days, it's way down. It's way, way down. Now, let me think of some other examples. Honestly, I can't. I can't think of any other examples. I mean, yeah, there are certain regulations, there's certain food safety and food inspections, and anywhere there's regulation, which the Republicans are constantly decrying the fact that, over-regulation. And yet they get on this big moral horse, scolding, sermonizing to these CEOs, how dare you think more about profits than about the children? It's hypocritical, it's ignorant, it's just stupid. Pick a lane. Either you want to regulate them or you don't, or let's be honest about what capitalism is. Now, from the solutions, and I'm going to have to go back and look at these. The senators kept mentioning 3 or 4 or 5. There were several proposed bills. I'll be honest, I haven't gone back and looked at them. I haven't read them, the proposed bills. I only know what they kind of described in the hearing. And one of the most important themes that kept coming up is, and one of the bills says that, yeah, consumers can sue you if there's a particular problem. Like if our teenage daughter committed suicide because she was being bullied online, and if they can prove that you were responsible for this, that you let this happen, it happened on your watch, then they can sue you. Currently, they can't be sued. The law says they can't be sued. So that's something they want to change. That's a law they want to enact. I'll tell you the truth. Even though everybody agrees with this, I'm not exactly sure even where I stand on this. Because, again, we're going to have to be consistent. You can't, except with very rare exceptions, try to sue a bar or a restaurant because a drunk driver killed your kid on the road. So try to sue the bar or restaurant that served that drunk driver. Good luck with that. It's not going to happen. Try to sue the brewery or the distillery that manufactured all the beer or whiskey or whatever the guy was drinking. I don't think you're going to get very far with that lawsuit. Gun manufacturers, there's the poster child right there. You can't sue gun manufacturers for deaths caused by firearms. Try suing a pharmaceutical if you get addicted to one of their products, or especially the vaccine makers. If you have something go awry with your vaccine, which happens, it doesn't happen nearly as often as the crazies would have you think. It's extremely rare, but it happens. No, a vaccine manufacturer is not going to be held responsible for that. The law is not going to help you there. We could even stretch this thought into more general areas. The whole food industry, which is another topic for another day, and we really should spend some time on it. But, oh my God, when you talk about the grocery store, and it's just rows and rows and rows of poison. I mean, highly, highly processed food that's just killing us all slowly. Sometimes not so slowly. I mean, I hope you educated yourself enough to know this, right? That except for the perimeter of the grocery store where they sell the produce, everything else is so highly processed that it's just literal poison. Going to kill you overnight? No. Going to kill you in 20, 30 years? Yeah. Even if you read, who's the excellent food writer? Pollan. Michael? Is that his first name? Michael Pollan? He writes about how even the apple you buy from the grocery store has about a third of the nutrition that the apple your grandmother or great-grandmother ate. Just because of the way they're grown, the way they're stored, the way they're shipped. You got to grow them faster and pick them earlier, and they have to travel thousands of miles. It's just a piece of damn fruit. So we're not even talking about the obvious, Cheez Whiz kind of monstrosities that you see. We're talking about a regular old apple. So again, I'm going off on a tangent here. But yeah, can we sue Kraft? Can we sue General Mills for making us all fat and stupid? I mean, food. We got to do a whole show on food. What else? To stretch this line of thinking just one more layer, content creators making us all just dumber and dumberer every minute of every day. Advertisers. Now, this is actually a kind of a related topic. There have been debates about advertising aimed towards children. I don't know where that stands right now. We mentioned tobacco earlier. That's kind of an obvious example. But generally speaking, I think most advertising targeted to children is perfectly legal in the United States. And we're about the only country left in the world where that's the case. Advertising aimed explicitly at children is not allowed in pretty much most of the world. We stand alone. So to criticize the tech companies, even though, I think they deserve a lot of criticism, but I think they deserve about as much criticism as the people I just mentioned. Bars, restaurants, brewers, distilleries, gun manufacturers, pharmaceuticals, food processors, advertisers, content creators, creating just these deplorable, violent, amoral movies and TV shows and video games, and it's just destroying us day by day. Now, you think I sound extreme, right? Well, I do. I sound pretty extreme relative to the general opinions out there. But really, how are the tech companies that much different? Again, I'm not saying this to excuse the tech companies. I'm saying that they're not that different than the rest of society. And the argument that they've been making for years and years and years now, that they're just carriers. This is why this kind of Rule 320, you can't take them to court, they can't be responsible. This is the argument that won the day back in the day, and it still holds. We're like the old phone company. Crimes could be committed over the phone. The phone company was just the carrier. If a bunch of conspirators get together and they plan their crime over the phone, and maybe even they commit their crime over the phone as some sort of fraud, well, you can't hold the phone company liable for that crime. Who would even think of that? It's crazy to even think that. If fraud is committed through the mail fraud, the United States Postal Service isn't held liable. So this is the argument they made, and I have to confess, it's a pretty damn strong argument. So where does this leave us? They really should be held responsible. They should be ashamed of themselves. As Marsha Blackburn said, how dare you think more about profits than you do the children? I agree with that. But it's baked right into the system, Marsha Blackburn. Why are you a capitalist? It's capitalism you need to attack. Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia. Yes, you've diagnosed the problem very clearly. He asked in his questioning, I thought just a perfect question. He said, Mr. Zuckerberg, do you want teenagers to use your product more or less? And of course, Zuckerberg fumbled around and he tried to answer. He tried to be real smooth and answer a lot of different ways. But Ossoff just kept hammering and hammering, and he just forced him to answer. Finally, yes, I want them to use our product more. Well, there you go. There you go. But it's not because Mark Zuckerberg is an evil guy, even though I think he probably is an evil guy. It's because he's working in an evil system. Capitalism, I was going to say it doesn't work, but that's not it. Capitalism works perfectly for what it's designed to do, maximize profits. at the expense of everything else. There's nothing built in to the system to protect anybody under capitalism. No, 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 the defenders will say. If a product is harmful to the public won't buy it, and then they'll go out of business. Show me how that's worked. Show me how a company that's polluting the river next to its factory, and their waste is getting into the groundwater, and they're causing cancer all throughout the region. And oh, okay, well, we'll just stop buying their petroleum, and they'll go out of business. Yeah, tell me the last time that worked. No, it doesn't work. At the very best, you get some advocates, some activists to protest and lobby, and you get some legislation passed, and you get some regulation going. Yeah, that can work. But that's a very slow process, and it's an inadequate process because in the long run, it's just not going to work in the big picture. You can't regulate this stuff anymore. You can't have this constant arms race. There's only one solution. And that is we got to get past capitalism. We got to get to the point where money's not at the center of everything, where it doesn't rule the roost, where profits aren't everyone's only concern. I mean, I'm not talking about regulation. I'm talking about taking away profit. I'm talking about changing the system. We can't regulate our way out of this. I mean, it was heartbreaking. We had all these family members holding up pictures of their dead children who have died as a result of bullying or trafficking or eating disorders, a variety of reasons. Their children fell prey to the evils of the internet. Take away the profit, you'll take away most of the problems. Will there still be just purely evil people who want to, just for their own twisted needs, want to have sex with children or do other horrible things? Yeah, taking away profit, the profit incentive won't necessarily take care of just pure evil, but I think you can point most of the problem to profit. And let's take a second. Imagine the world where social media companies were not allowed to make a profit, that they were public utilities. They were run by worker owners or by volunteers, where profit had absolutely nothing to do with your mission. It was completely there to do the good things that social media can do. And as they mentioned in the hearings, and I agree, social media can be just fantastic for creating communication and community and all that. But without profit, in a social media world where profit is no longer a thing, the algorithms wouldn't be steering you to moneymakers. To the point that Ossoff was making, where you want more or less use by teenagers, there'd be no incentive to have teenagers use your service more because you're there just for a service. And just as a responsible person, that to be online 5, 6, 10 hours a day is not healthy for anybody, especially kids, but not for anybody. So you wouldn't put right into your product design all these addictive mechanisms the way a food processor puts addictive elements into their potato chips, which they do. They put chemicals into every potato chip that make you want the next potato chip. Now, do you think a food company that was only there to feed people healthy food and there was no profit, you think they would do that? Why would they do that? They'd have to be pathologically insane to do that. So if there was a pathologically insane food manufacturer, they would be one out of a million, and we'd spot them pretty quickly, and we'd say, hey, you know what? Get out of the business. You just lost your license or whatever, whatever it takes to be in business. So yeah, it's all about profit. It's all about capitalism all the time. Don't let anybody fool you. That's all it's ever about. So, well, I did have a couple of other things, and maybe we'll get to them. In related issues, Next time we get together, maybe we'll just take care of it right away next time. I saw this really disturbing article about chatbots, these robots that are designed to be friends of senior citizens in order to fight loneliness, which is weird. A good article on sustainable AI, 4 paths to sustainable AI, from the point of view of the profit makers, which is very much related to what we're talking about. Chief Information Officers Magazine, CIO.com, put together 4 paths to sustainable AI. The White House AI Council met again last week or this week. So yeah, AI and then also in tech. Yeah, this is way more than one episode could handle. Elon Musk's Neuralink has been implanted in the first human. The same week that a judge decided that his $56 billion compensation package from Tesla was quote unquote unfathomable, and he negated it. So yeah, let's pick up right here next week. And regardless of what else we talk about next week, let me start with these things because I kind of plan on doing this today, and I as usual I get a little too verbose. I hope you'll excuse me. But yeah, AI, Elon Musk, way too much power for one person to have in the world. Let's kick off next week with those things, and then whatever else happens in the news. All right, there it is. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Go to my website, charlesburcell.com. That's charlesburcell.com for all of the podcasts in the podcast family. Oh, speaking of which, next week, February 11th, is the brand new season of Charles Burcell Presents. Our first new episode in quite a while. We haven't done a new episode of that particular program for quite a while. You don't have to subscribe separately. It'll come in the same feed as this one. So from here on out, the log will be every other offering in your feed if you're a subscriber. You're going to get Charles Burcell Presents starting on the 11th of February, and that's the audio art and the radio theater. That's the fun stuff. And then every other show will be this show, The Log. The Log will continue to drop on Wednesday evenings or Thursdays at midnight. And Charles Burcell Presents will drop at some point on Sundays. By Sunday evening, they'll be ready for you. So 2 shows per week. So excited about that. I hope you'll look for it and listen. I hope you'll enjoy it. That's Charles Burcell Presents. It's all the weird stuff. Starting February 11th. All right, there it is. This is The Log. I'm Charles Burcell. See ya.